Hi, you're listening to the Rise Up Functional Wellness Podcast. I'm Whitney Ford, a certified functional wellness counselor. I work with clients who are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and using a comprehensive, incredibly immersive, and ultimately transformative 90-day program, I take these clients from feeling sick and tired to feeling vibrant and healthy and wonderful. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I am so excited. We have our very first guest here on the Rise Up Functional Wellness Podcast. Her name is Jenny Lee. She is a double board certified physician and she's a wellness coach. Jenny specializes in working with clients who are struggling with fertility after she went through her own fertility struggles. And today we're going to be talking specifically about endocrine disruptors. So stay tuned. It's definitely going to be an awesome show. The Rise Up Functional Wellness Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on this show today, and I'm also super eager to know more about your journey and would love to hear you tell us a little bit more about how you became both a double board certified physician and a wellness coach.
Yeah, so thank you for having me on your podcast today. I'm excited to chat with you. I guess I'll start off by kind of telling my story about how I started. I see patients in the hospital who are very sick from chronic medical conditions because they're never taught about the importance of healthy diet and exercising. And in our healthcare system, we are not able to have the time to educate people really before they get sick. And also, healthy people don't often come to the doctor regularly to receive this type of education. So they only come to the hospital once they're diagnosed with a condition and it's gotten really bad and serious. So the patient can also have all these limiting beliefs that prevent him or her from taking the right medications or to make lifestyle changes that you may want to recommend to them. So I just don't think that in traditional healthcare, we're able to get past those limiting beliefs. We're not able to really dig into them and really understand what they believe about these medications or lifestyle changes that you're recommending to them. That's where I think coaching is really good at filling in those gaps because we form a partnership with our clients and we work through their limiting beliefs and we work towards specific goals that are mostly set by the client. And together we overcome hurdles and we troubleshoot and we figure out different solutions to their problems. And we help keep our clients accountable and we provide them with support on their journey, whatever journey that they choose.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I often have said exactly what you just said is that as a health coach, we kind of fill in the gap where traditional healthcare can't. So as a physician, did you feel like you weren't able to fully help these people to the capacity that you wanted? And if so, was that something that kind of fueled your journey to become a wellness coach?
Definitely. That is 100% the reason why a lot of times whenever they're in the hospital, they've been sick with these problems for years and years. And I'll be the first one to take some time to say, oh, did you try this, plant-based diet? Or, have you had like a exercise routine? And a lot of times people will tell me, no one has ever told me that that could have prevented me from getting to the
Mm-hmm.
point that I am today. I'm like, I totally understand because, whenever we're in clinic as residents, there was just no time. There was just so much paperwork. There was just labs that needed to be run. And a lot of people have all these medical problems that you can only deal with a few of them at a time. Plus you have to do like their annual exam. And for women, you got to do a pap smear. So it's just very limited on the time that we have to educate patients. So I love that, coaching is a way that we can still help them, but just in a different way.
Yeah, that is awesome. And side note, I just had a very interesting experience happen with my stepdad, who is probably very similar to a lot of the patients that you see in the hospital. He's been sick for ages, and he recently was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney failure or kidney disease. And he was given a pamphlet of what to eat. And the food choices that they gave him like blew my mind. They were telling him he can have yellow cake, which I thought was hilarious. Like, why not chocolate cake? But foods like I wouldn't consume as a healthy individual. Lots of like
Yeah.
white flours and things. I almost looked at it like I was shocked, to be honest. And luckily, in consequent doctor's appointments, he and my mom went and they were lucky enough to find someone maybe similar to you who was able to tell them, hey, maybe you should try a plant-based diet approach. And so I'm so
Hmm.
excited that they had that. As a functional nutrition counselor. I i am not I'm not a physician by any means, and I didn't feel comfortable in my scope of practice prescribing a diet for him with such a serious disease. So I think it's awesome that people like you exist out there and are able to give them that insight. And sometimes all it is just a sentence. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And it kind of prompts them to pursue a new route.
Saying that I feel like there's always a balance in nutrition and just wellness in general. Like on one end of the spectrum, it's like traditional like medicine. This is what we recommend because we've been printing out these pamphlets for 10 years now. We're not going to make any changes to it, you know? And
Mhm.
now like we're learning so much more information, you know, this field of lifestyle medicine is out there and there's just so many studies showing the benefit of plant-based diets, but a lot of medicine and just people in it are lagging behind. They're not up to date on it. And it just takes time for people to adopt these new habits based on the scientific research that's out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so I understand that your specialty is fertility in your wellness practice. Is that correct?
Yes, it is totally separate from what I do in the hospital where I see older male patients, but it's nice to have, you know, a different practice whenever I'm coaching people.
Yeah, definitely. And that you had mentioned in our previous conversations that that's because of a personal journey that you had gone on, which I think is like par for the course. A lot of health coaches specialize in their own personal journey. So that's awesome. And you can feel free to elaborate on that. But I also want to touch base on endocrine disruptors. So if you can define what those are and how they pertain to fertility, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so your endocrine system is a system that has these glands and the hormones that the glands release throughout the body, and they regulate so many different activities, including metabolism, reproduction, and growth and development. So, estrogen and testosterone and these types of hormones are part of this endocrine system. And the endocrine disrupting chemicals that are harmful to your body are chemicals that mess with these hormones. And EDC or endocrine disrupting chemical exposure can also cause some cancers. So they're all very important to pay attention to, even if you don't have fertility struggles.
Okay. Yeah. And so, how obviously hormones impact fertility. How can these endocrine disruptors Im- impact these hormones and then in turn negatively affect fertility or one's ability to conceive?
Yeah, so these hormones can actually affect them in a lot of different ways. Sorry, the endocrine disrupting chemicals can affect hormones in a lot of different ways. It can increase, it can decrease, it can just modulate it in different ways. And your fertility is such a delicate balance of different hormones at the right level. So any shifts in the levels can affect, you know, whether or not you're eggs get released at a certain time if you ovulate and all of that. So it's a very delicate balance.
Wow.
You can actually detect lower levels of EDCs within days of making all these changes. So it's
Really?
constantly changing. Yeah, there's urine tests out there. I think the company is called Million Marker, where you can mail in your urine and it can detect what levels of certain EDCs that you have, and then they have recommendations, and then you can test it again afterwards. So
That is so
it's very
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
So with the clients that you see who are struggling with fertility, do you find that they typically fall within the same range of of that lab test, or do you find that some people are more sensitive and can be affected at a lower range?
Yeah, and actually don't do the lab test with
Okay.
clients just because I haven't, I mean, it's kind of costly. I think it's probably over $100 for the
Mhm.
test. But I just feel like there's so many opportunities to already make the swaps that, I don't think that it'll change what I recommend anyways.
Good
I
point.
think a lot of us, whenever we look at all of our household products and say was, if a lab test doesn't change what I would recommend, then, it's not really beneficial for the client unless they're just really, really curious. Like in all of medicine, I don't do an extra test because every test has, extra information that you may not want to, that you don't need to know about, that kind of clouds your judgment. So if it doesn't change what I do, then I don't do that.
Definitely. I completely agree. I'm a bit of a data junkie. I love those numbers, but like you, I agree. For one, they can be very costly, and
Hmm.
two, they ultimately don't change anything. They,
Yeah,
can sometimes confirm things, or maybe they can add to the confusion even for the patient or the client. So, yeah,
exactly.
I'm right there with you. So, and I understand, from my understanding, these endocrine disruptors, they are, or EDCs, they're everywhere, right? Like I've even heard that they're in our tap water because of microplastics.
Yes, they
And
are absolutely everywhere.
yeah, so and it can seem overwhelming. I know like when I first learned about them, I was overwhelmed with the lifestyle choices required or needed
Hmm.
if I wanted to
Hmm.
eliminate them. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm not even going to be able to eliminate them because they're everywhere. So, which, maybe that's one of those limiting beliefs, but it did take me,
Hmm.
because of that psychological aspect of it, of holy cow, this is a lot. It took me personally a lot longer to make these changes. Um, so how do you deal with that when we've got them everywhere, and it can be a little daunting?
I never think that anyone should expect perfection. So I don't
Mhm.
think that anyone should think about eliminating completely. That's not a life to live, to like protect yourself from everything, but just to limit it to the amount that you can without causing you all this stress and anxiety. Because I felt that while going through a fertility journey. But for me, it was a way for me to have some control over this roller coaster of infertility, that
Mhm.
I was very dedicated to it. I like the control of being able to look something up, knowing what was in it, and then, switching it out if I wanted to. Um, but that, different people are different. Sometimes it can really
Right.
stress you out. And I did it only to a certain point. I was like, I'm not going to switch out like this chapstick that I use once a month. That's
Mhm.
not high yield. So unfortunately, there's like no labels on products that say this has EDCs. So the burden is really on us as consumers to do the research. Like back in the day, like 5 years ago, when I looked up every single product on EWG database, it's the Environmental Working Group. They have a huge database of products. It was so overwhelming. And even since then, the database has grown significantly because all these new brands have come out, especially as consumers are asking for more and more clean products. But I just think that the information is out there, and my goal and my job is to help clients make the highest yield swaps
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
awesome.
very overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's awesome. And sometimes I feel like it needs to be a slow process. I know with my clients, going from, sometimes it can be overwhelming. And just like you discussed, the stress can sometimes outweigh the benefits or
Hmm.
maybe negate them. Um, Sometimes it's like a multiple month long journey on my
Yes,
end with
yes.
clients, because it's like, okay, well, what can we change this month or next
Yeah.
month? And then there's
And I think,
also, sorry, go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there's also a financial burden that comes with it because, if not, most of the people I know are frugal, and we certainly don't want to waste, and we don't want to throw everything away that we
Hmm.
currently have. So it's a process to get rid of what's on hand and replace it with cleaner products.
That's exactly what I was going to say about the financial aspect of it, because we have to be realistic about what people are actually able to do. Like we can't ask them to change every single thing immediately when they're limited by finances, like I was in residency.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, what, in your experience, actually, you know what, first, since some of our listeners are probably might be new to the idea of EDCs in general, can you name maybe like, let's say a few that are really common that people don't expect?
Yeah. So, well, I guess the names of them are like phthalates and
Mhm.
BPA, parabens, dioxins, perfluorinated chemicals, pesticides. But the things that they're found in are just like plastics and, like, for example, the thermal receipts that you get whenever you go to the grocery store, or I think like on some airline paper tickets, that has high amounts of BPA on it. So
Wow.
for a while, I did not touch receipts, or if I did, I would just like toss it immediately and wash my hands afterwards.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had no idea.
there's a lot in those. And then also, the buzzword I think is BPA free, right? But companies are making plastics with BPS, BPF that are just as harmful. So I would say that if you still need to use plastic for convenience, I would just not heat it in the microwave or wash it in the dishwasher, because heat causes these chemicals to be released. So if you can't swap it for something that's like glass or stainless steel, then just don't heat it, especially if there's food in there or
Okay.
water.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so what do you feel like is the most challenging change for people to make when it comes to eliminating these products that contain the EDCs?
I I personally felt like for me it was removing scented products, because we're so used to having like the Bath and Body Works lotion, like from when we were
Mhm.
young. You've
Yep.
like grown up like using the same lotion for 10, 15 years, and sometimes it's like nostalgic too. You don't want to get rid of that smell, or like a lot of different beauty products and like perfumes, like you've been using it for a while and you found one that really works for you. um, so those the things that people use on a daily basis are very difficult.
Yeah, those like creature comforts almost.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That's so interesting, and, I'm just like you, I grew up with the Bath and Body Works cucumber melon era,
Yes,
basically.
that was our generation.
Yep. And, it was, yeah, it was a little challenging for me to move past that, especially with the beauty products as well. But now it's so funny when I'm in public and wash my hands, if the soap is scented and that scent lingers, I am like, now that I've removed artificial scents from my life, when I have that, I am so sensitive to it. If I have that soap on my hands, I'm like, oh, great. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I'm just like you with the scents. Like it lingers and I smell all day long, and it just smells a lot stronger than I feel like it should.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, if you had, for our listeners out there, if you could recommend 3 changes that could help them in eliminate or reducing products with EDCs, what would those be? 3 simple changes that you think most people could benefit from?
Yeah, I think my first tip would be to buy organic, especially if it's on the Dirty Dozen list. The Environmental Working Group puts out a list of, 12 fruits and vegetables that have, I think, the highest amount of pesticides. So if you can buy organic for those, and then you could probably buy conventional for the others. I think there's like a
Okay.
clean list as well. So that's a good resource to look at. And I would say look at beauty products or even household products to see if they contain something called fragrance or perfume in the ingredients. And if possible, I would use these sparingly. But I mean, if you really want to eliminate everything, you can look for something that is fragrance free. Sometimes, whenever it's labeled as unscented, it is actually a scent, which is very tricky. I learned that from someone
Yeah.
a few months ago. And sometimes it can also be labeled as aroma. So there's just a lot of like little tricks that they do to put scents in there.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, it's just like we get tricked so easily, huh?
Hmm.
We're like, this
Yeah.
smells so good.
And they know exactly what they're doing. Oh, you don't want the BPA? Okay, it's BPA free, but we're gonna,
Yes,
swap it for something equally bad. So
exactly. And it's just not fair for consumers to always have to keep up with this stuff.
it's not.
Like we don't have the time to be researching.
Right.
Um, I guess my third tip would be to think about what you use all over your body. Like if it's body wash, then that's high yield. Or if you use a lotion every day, then that's something that you should think about switching. I personally like to use baby lotions and kind of baby washes because they are usually unscented and don't irritate my skin. Pipette and Mustela are really good brands. And Beauty Counter is EWG certified, and Hugh and Grace's body oil is a current favorite of mine. So just
Okay.
think about what covers your body because your skin is your largest organ, and that's the way that EDCs can get into your body.
That yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And I'm gonna link the brands that you just listed in our show notes. I've heard of Mustela, new to Pipette, haven't heard of what was the fragrance or the you said Hue and
Beauty
Grace?
Counter,
Okay,
Hugh and Grace. Yeah,
Hue and
I'm actually an advocate for them. So I learned about this company a few months ago from my friend, and they went through like a 14 or 15-year fertility struggle. So all of their products are EDC free, and they don't use essential oils like lavender or tea tree that disrupt your hormones either. So they're really great, clean products that I absolutely love.
that is awesome. And yeah, I'm a huge proponent of if you're gonna take something out, like the fragrances or, totally unrelated to the endocrine system. Well, not totally, but gluten and things like that. You've got to replace it with something. If we just limit everything, we're just all going to be miserable human beings. So I love being able to replace things with cleaner options. So that's awesome. I'm going to look into that, and like I said, I'll
Yeah.
link it in the show notes. As far as Beauty Counter goes, I love their products as well. That's what I use, and one of the other things I love about that company is that they are continually adding to their list of ingredients that they don't use. So I love the fact that they're transparent about the fact that they don't know everything, and they are constantly evolving, and they're constantly learning more about the ingredients of products. And since I've been using their products, they've actually added more to their list of never use. So that's really cool too.
I love that. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like I heard about them talking to like lawmakers or something about EDC. So that's
Yeah.
huge for a
Yeah.
company to be doing that.
Yeah. I used to be a consultant with them, and I no longer am. I just use the products. But when I remember hearing all this stuff about that. Yeah, they were going down to Washington and trying to get the FDA to regulate the products a little bit better because
Hmm.
apparently it was like 1970 something the last time the FDA reviewed beauty products.
Oh
So
my
kind of
gosh.
wild. And that kind of speaks to that same idea that you mentioned earlier is that the consumer has to do so much work. And unfortunately, we cannot trust that these companies have our best interests at heart.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And is there anything else that you feel like our listeners should know or that you'd like to add?
I just wanted to say that for anyone on their fertility journey, don't feel like you're alone. There's a lot of people struggling with this, and reach out for help where you need it. Ask for support. A lot of people don't know how to support people going through a fertility journey. So just ask for exactly what you need and reach out to me if you ever need help with anything, if you need any additional support.
Awesome. And we're going to link your contact info in the show notes as well. I understand you have an Instagram, you've got a website. What's the best way for somebody to reach you?
Yeah, so they can reach me on my website. It's just jlwellness.org or on Instagram, jenny.lee.md, and people can always DM me.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and a little bit about your journey. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thanks. All right, have a good one.
Okay, you too.
Bye. Okay, bye.
Bye.